welcome Patrice Piveteau and Bertrand Verduzier. Patrice is cellar master at Cognac Frapin, and Bertrand is our export director.
Sure.
And we are here this afternoon to talk about the new vintage cognac that Frapin are launching today, the 1992 26-year-old. So hopefully you have charged your glasses now, and it will fall to me to invite perhaps Bertrand to begin to kick things off with setting the scene a little with some background and details about Frapin and where they sit in the world of cognac.
Thank you, Kate. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining. Yes, so Frapin, let's go back to with a little bit of history. This is so important to mention, especially in this year of celebration for us. It's a family story. As you know, the story dates back to 1270, when the family came from the southwest of France and established in the very exact same location as where we are today. And they started running vineyards. So we are celebrating this year 750 years of the marriage of the family, which is still the same family today, with this specific terroir, which is still the same today. Obviously, the product has changed and has evolved. But it's the link between the terroir and the family which makes Frapin, I guess, so special in this world of cognac, which, as you know, is made mainly of very large brands, which are run completely differently from ours, which is, on the other hand, made of a lot of vine growers, which also operate in a very different level. So the specificity of Frapin is very much to have a very long family story, to be still run by the Frapin family. Jean-Pierre Cointreau, the president, 21 generations, is Frapin from his grandmother. The 22nd generation is coming now. So the story continues. So the place of Frapin in the world of cognac is that we are basically a small player in the category, but we are a large player in the niche segment, if you want. Why is that? Well, the size of Frapin and maybe the size of its domain. The Frapin domain, which is located in Segonzac and for the vineyard in the southeast part of Grande Champagne, between Segonzac and Ligny-Sonneville, is 350 hectares with 240 hectares of vine, which is probably the largest vineyard in one piece in Grande Champagne. So it's quite a compact, if you want, vineyard, and obviously very well located, because in the area of Grande Champagne where the hills are more important. And today, I guess, we're going to focus, of course, on the vintage, but focusing on the vintage, we are going to focus also on one part of the Frapin vineyard, which is the single estate of Château Fontpinault, which is another specificity within the vineyard. The vintage in cognac is very marginal in terms of production. It's very small, and often it is proposed by some big brands as luxury products. So small edition, very high retail price, often in luxury retail or duty-free shops. On the other hand, you have some small growers that, like they would make wine, decide to isolate every harvest one after the other. And this is obviously, because of the size of those operators, very small. At Frapin, the place of the vintage is probably a bit more important than the two other type of operators. There is now a tradition at Frapin to propose one or several vintages at the same time. And the first vintage at Frapin was 1979. And of course, I will let Patrice explain the approach of the vintage at Frapin. But it's a specialité, which in terms of positioning is quite important, because it's really, I think, one of the products that bring a lot of very good value for the price positioning, knowing that it's very small quantities each time.
That's great. Thank you, Bertrand. That sets the scene nicely. So with that nice base, let's pass over to Patrice. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
And thank you for joining us. And if you would like to tell us a little bit about the 1992 and tell us all the details.
Okay, so the cognac in general in the market, it's a blend. In cognac area, is it possible to make a vintage? So we are not alone, but we are not a lot to produce vintage. In cognac, we need to prove the traceability of the origin of the millésime. So Frapin worked with the authorities of the BNIC, Bureau National of the Cognac, and we have a window between the end of the distillation to the end of March, and then we decide to make a selection, and we call the authorities, we put in cask, and then they put seals on the cask. And every time we want to take sample, we want to pump, we want to, I don't know, the bottling, we have to call the authorities, we have to pay also. And then is it possible for us to prove the origin of the millésime? For Frapin, I don't produce vintage every year. I have not in 80, 81, 84, 87. I have not because I have not perhaps at the beginning, or during the aging, if the quality seems to be the same as the rest of the range, I put it in the blend. So if a vintage arrives in a market, it's because it's good, according to me, but it's also different than the rest of the range to bring something else in the range. So, 1992, 26 years old. It's from Uni Blanc, the variety in this area, from our vineyard, so 240 hectares in the heart of Grand Champagne, and Frapin control all the process. It's an advantage, of course. 92 was a year with a big crop. There was quite a lot of big grapes. So it was a good crop with I could say a high level of acidity. So it's a good news to conserve the wine before the distillation. We started to picking grape at the beginning of October at this time. Frapin during the process have many characteristics. For example, we distill with a lees. I consider when you are in the heart of Grand Champagne and when you want to age a long time, you need to distill with a lees. I'm keen on two kinds of lees. So the lees from the yeast, alcoholic fermentation, but also the lees from the pulp. So for example, during the vinification, I don't make settling. You know, everywhere in a dry white wine vinification, you wait many hours to have a sedimentation and you pump the clear. No, not for Frapin. I'm keen on the fine pulp lees. So it's also one of the specificity. After the distillation, we have different level of aging in cask, and for example, for the first level, it's a new cask. I consider the casks are new during 5 years. It's my consideration. This vintage age only 6 months in new cask. Generally, for the range of Frapin, it's between 6 months or 1 year. So for this one is 6 months. And you know that another characteristic of Frapin, we have many kinds of cellar in two big groups: humid cellar downstairs and dry cellar upstairs. And upstairs, as a characteristic of the dry cellar, we lose more, especially during summer, so we have more concentration. And we lose differently than in humid cellar because we lose more water than alcohol in proportion. And this 92 comes from dry cellar. And the name of the cellar is Marie Frapin, but it's a typical quality of Frapin from dry cellar. So the result of this kind of aging is this cognac after 26 years. The result of this kind of aging is a cognac very fine and elegant, a little bit straight like this, you know, very with a purity. Not too woody, you know. I generally every time I'm keen on complexity. What is complexity? Complexity is when you have something very rich, and if you have a lot of aroma, everybody can find something with his own souvenir. To be complex, I need not to have not too much wood, because if it's woody, it may be good, but not complex because everybody can find the wood. So typically, this one is complex. So if you taste it, everybody have a own souvenir, and but for me, is it possible to find apricot, licorice, many things like this, dry fruit also.
Orange peel for me, definitely.
Orange also, apricot. Second things very important for me in when I taste cognac, because you know when you taste cognac, you need to have some pleasure and some emotion. And I think a part of the emotion comes from that the cognac have evolution during the tasting. So the tasting now, it will be different in 10 minutes. It's the reason why it's difficult to describe really, because it's personal really. And this one is really with evolution. It's the reason why apricot, figs, etc. But it's complex, very, very rich. And if you taste it, for me it's clear, but a lot of flavor again. You know, it's a long aftertaste. It's one of the characteristics of Frapin, the aftertaste. Like this, you know,
yeah.
It's like a firework, like this. Puff, huh? So of course you can find the famous rancio, you know, the small oxidation, but look at the aftertaste, very, very long. So my English is not enough better, but it's light. It's not a good word in English, but I don't know the good word. But you know, it's easy to taste because it's very rich, not too heavy. Okay, because to finish, what is important? It's interesting to explain how do we make it and the techniques, etc. You are professional, but what is really important for the market, the customer, is the result in the glass. And what is important, I said before, is a pleasure to taste. So I hope you have some pleasure to taste it. But really, it's typically Frapin work. You know, artisanal way. We distill not with computer, but we between picking grape to the bottling, all the big decision is only through the tasting. You know, of course we analyze because we have to know what is the element inside, but all the big decision is only by the tasting. And okay, it's a real artisanal cognac.
Well, I think it's delicious, and I think it's actually really approachable and enjoyable, but it has, as you're completely right, this really super long, very focused finish. And I hope as you're tasting along with us at home, you can taste that. If you have any questions or comments, please throw them into the chat. So one of the things we talked about just very much at the beginning was the glass that we would serve it in. I know that you prefer to have the tulip glass rather than the big traditional cognac balloon glass. What do you feel about temperatures, glasses? Any thoughts on serving this with food or with as an after dinner? What are your thoughts?
So at the beginning, the most important things is the cognac itself. And the rest is secondaire, but also important. The temperature is the temperature of the room. So between 18 to 20, you have not to warm. If it's too cold, you have to warm. But if you warm it, you have to wait many minutes before drinking, before tasting, because when you warm, the more volatile element go away, and it could give some aggressivity sometimes. So you have to wait after. About the glass, my tool every day is this tulip glass. And I consider really that the glass of the wine is better than a balloon glass for me. Everybody have an idea, huh? But yes, this form. But the best one is tulip, like this. You know, is the same form of the chapiteau. You know, just up the pot still, because it's a good form for the volatile element. You know, so it's better to taste it. After that, it's a good question, the consumption, because today, is it possible to drink cognac not only in digestif, but also in aperitif? So probably not with a vintage, but you know, with a younger cognac, with a cocktail. There is a lot of place where people drink with and we speak about mixology today. Mixology, it's like gastronomy. The people we create need something very good to create something exceptional. So there is a place for the cognac and Cognac Frapin, of course. Second element is the digestif, you know, everybody know that, but also food pairing. More and more, we try to have a good balance between type of cognac with scallops of carpaccio of scallops, pigeon with foie gras. You know, is it possible also to have a good balance between
it's not something that we would traditionally do before, but I know we've tried it at Frapin before, and it's always been incredibly successal. A question has come in about the alcohol level of the cognac, which I know is about 40.5. That is not cask strength. So what's your thinking on cask strength down to the level that it's at now?
You know, when I develop a new cognac like this one, it's through a blind taste. It's not the easier way, but I think it's the best way for me. To develop a new one, I taste many vintages, and I consider it's this one, and I work on it. You know, and the alcohol content is just at the end. When I make a selection of a cask, after I try many alcohol level, and I decide the good one for me. So for this one is 40.5, but sometimes it's 42.8. Sometimes, you know, it's a sort of subjective decision because it's mine. Is a story of the alcohol content.
Fantastic, thank you. And Bertrand, so we're releasing this officially today, but obviously we've shown this cognac to a few people before in a few competitions or whatever. How's it gone down? How's it been received?
So yes, so we presented this cognac like we do every year. We like to play this game for Frapin with very happy results because, you know, all the Frapin cognac that have been presented in the last few years have won minimum gold medal, which is a great achievement. And this one, you know, first tasting that we participate in, the Cognac Masters, it has made the Taste Master, so best vintage, and it has made the Cognac Master, so the best of all segments, the best of the category. So it's a very, so it's always nice, of course, to have that. It's always very, you know, to have this feedback. So yeah, very good start indeed.
That is a good start, and it's useful to be able to give that information. So I'm going to start to wrap up. So if anyone has any comments or anything that they wish to ask, now is your moment. But I will, oh, Guy, can we unmute Guy? Guy always has a question.
Right. Hello. Good afternoon, Patrice, Bertrand, and the team. How are you doing?
Hello, Guy.
Patrice, you probably remember actually, and I think probably Matt was with me. I think we probably visited you in about '92. I can't quite remember, but showing my age there anyway.
I was there.
Just a quick question is, a lot of customers will be buying the cognac, and they'll probably be asking me, well, how long is this going to age for? Obviously, being in a bottle, standing upright, you know, is not going to take on more age. But can you just maybe just give us a bit of you know, advice to customers who want to buy this? If that went through, what I said. Did you hear that?
Bertrand, Patrice, will this cognac age further in the bottle?
It would remain very stable for the future. I think the variation in the very long term are very tiny. So yeah, you can of course if you use your bottle, there would be a hint of oxidation, but it's very small. It will not affect the quality. It's an evolution across many years, but you know, it's not going to fade in any way. So no risk.
What'll be interesting is I shall put my glass, as you always say, just on the side, and then try it tomorrow morning and see what it's like.
Yes. With oxidation.
I've had mine open since
complexity,
and my whole
I'd
office.
expect nothing less, Kate.
My office smells amazing.
You're right, Guy. To assess the complexity of the cognac, you can do this completely and develop more aromatic and discover more complexity. There is, you know, you can keep your glass for a long time.
Yeah, and one question, if you've seen in the chat that Ivan asked, which is how many bottles were produced of 1992?
Yeah, so 3,000 bottles made in total. So it's very tiny production. So this cognac under 26 years old is a few casks, 3,000 bottles, and that's it. You know, and this will go mainly to our typical vintage markets in Europe, France, Germany, Russia, of course, and of course the UK. And this will go also to China, which is now it has also become our main, not only market in general, but main market also for vintage.
Excellent.
So 3,000, yeah, it's a small number, but the thing is, in general, we have several vintages at the same time, which is great, but not necessarily at the moment. So we are very much focusing in the next few months on this one.
And our approximate UK retail price would be about £150. I think I'm right in saying that. Is that correct?
Yes, that's what I said to start. Of course, I'm not saying it's a cheap price at all. I'm just saying that I believe that a vintage for the additional value, and when you look at the market at this price, is a very nice product. 26 years old, Grand Champagne and everything you've just heard, for just the price above Chateau Fontpinot. Not a big difference, actually. and gives me also the opportunity to, of course, for those of you, and I think all of you know well Chateau Fontpinault XO, and we are talking about the same terroir here. We are talking of the terroir of the chateau, which I think is important to mention as well. You know, this single estate within the Frapin domain, which is quite unique. So obviously 92 is coming from this vineyard as well.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much. I hope you've all enjoyed tasting. If anyone has any further questions, let us know, but I'll start to wrap up and thank, oh, apparently it's Matt's birth year. So he's gonna put in an order, I think. Thank you, Patrice. Thank you, Bertrand, for taking us through this delicious new cognac. And I'm sure everyone has enjoyed hearing your thoughts about this afternoon. Thank you everybody else for tuning in this afternoon. It's good to see you all, and I hope you've enjoyed listening in, and stay safe and stay well, and I hope to see you all in person before too long.